Is the DeWALT Tracksaw worth the money, especially compared to some of the other competition like Ridgid, Milwaukee, and Festool? This is my unboxing and first impression of this tool. I purchased this myself, and it's about $600-ish, give or take, depending on where you buy it from, and with the track as well as the saw, charger, and battery. This is the Outlaw effect. First thing we gotta do is unbox it. It does come in a hard case, which I really enjoy and appreciate. Much like the Milwaukee comes in a PACKOUT with certain kits or certain combos, I like the fact that they give you a carry case for this. It's great for storage in the shop or transportation. Is it weird that I cut the tape with a Milwaukee knife on a DeWALT box? First impression of the box, it's a nice box. I appreciate a good box. When you look at the Festool system, they give you the sustainer. Milwaukee gives you the PACKOUT, and then DeWALT, it used to be called T-Stack. I'm not sure if it's still called that anymore. I used to think that boxes weren't that important, but the more I got into trying to organize the shop, the more I realized how awesome it is to have a great place for this. Now, opening the box, first impression is you get a battery right here. Big old 60 volt. It says 20 volt slash 60. I think you can run this on their 20 volts. We'll see. I'm almost sure you can, but this is a big old FlexVolt 6 amp hour. Instruction manual. Men don't need those. I'm kidding, read your instruction manual. Straight out of the box, we got a charger and the saw itself. Overall, this box it feels better made than the Festool sustainers. I always thought those felt a little cheapy while they're not. I mean, they stack up, they work well. They always just kind of feel less premium than what you're paying for them. When I got the Milwaukee PACKOUT in, I thought, man, that thing is really nice. It feels solid. And this kind of gives me a similar feeling to the PACKOUT. Kind of interesting, I didn't realize how small this box was until I put these two beside it. This is the Festool TSC 55K that the Tracksaw comes in. It's a really tall, kind of a almost narrow box. And then you got the big boy, the Milwaukee PACKOUT. It's much larger. It's almost like Shaquille O'Neal is standing beside some little person. It's not really a con. I think everything that you need fits in there. There's a lot of open space in both of these when the saw is there. So I think DeWALT is conserving some space there. I do prefer the Milwaukee PACKOUTs. I think they are the superior system. I always liked how this looked. It looks different, it's shaped different than the competitors, and I just think it looks pretty cool like this. It feels nice, like the heft of it and the feel in the hands. Nice grippy texture on both of these handles, the one forward and the one in the rear. Just an overall good feeling tool, which is not surprising coming from DeWALT. As far as the charger goes, you do get the fast charger, so you can be able to up and running in no time using this charger. And then it gives you, of course, the battery as we discussed before. Gummy stickers, that's always appreciated. Sticky, gunky residue. Thank you, DeWALT. So if you're transporting, they want you to leave this protector on, and while in use, you take it off. Seriously, somebody's laughing at me knowing, hey, he don't know how to take it off. Shouldn't it just slide off? Come on. You ever tried to open a jar of pickles or something and you can't open it and then your wife opens it? Yeah, that's the way I feel right now. This doesn't just pop off. You have, I don't know, why didn't I think about this? I should have known this. Push the button. This comes off easily. Duh. All right, this slides right into the back. Now this battery, even though it's really big, it doesn't really feel overly heavy. It doesn't really feel any heavier than like a 5 amp hour, the regular battery. So it doesn't really add a whole lot of weight to the saw. I think they thought this out well as far as the aesthetic design of it, because if you check it out, looking from the top, the DeWALT name brand's on the bottom, so you still get that branding there, DeWALT on the side, and then of course on the next side, this is DeWALT here. It just looks cool. What I noticed immediately kind of strikes me is the contrast on the depth setting and the angle or the miter setting is really nice. That yellow pops really good with the black. It does have a swiveling dust port. I wonder if the Festool hose will fit inside there. Absolutely, that is fantastic. Fits in there, nice friction fit. It takes quite a bit of force to get it out of there, so that's gonna work perfect. No need to have an adapter or anything like that. It's interesting the way it plunges. This is the first time I've plunged it. It plunges more of a kind of that kind of action versus the under action on, say, the Milwaukee or the Festool or even the Ridgid. I actually don't mind that. I don't necessarily like that the riving knife is tied to the blade movement. In other words, it all moves at the same time. I've seen this on the Ryobi, and it doesn't lend itself well for a plunge cut or at all on the Ryobi, whereas the Milwaukee, Festool not really because it has anti-kickback, doesn't have the riving knife per se, but the Milwaukee and the Ridgid both have an independent moving riving knife. I think that works a little better, but I mean, it's fine. Power up. Nice soft start. some type of brake, seems like, because it stops really fast. I like it. Feels like it's got a lot of power. Before we get too much into the saw, let's check out the track. One thing that kind of concerns me a little bit, it comes in a big box, like a big UPS style box. All of this was in there, plus the track, and one end was damaged pretty good. So I want to see if it got damaged in transit. It's kind of one of those things when you're transporting stuff like this, is risk of damage. I'm also curious, because I haven't looked it up, is will the Festool and other tools work on this track, or is it a proprietary track like the Ridgid and Ryobi have? Well, the good news is, as you can see, it was well padded and protected on that end, so it's not damaged there. It is a proprietary track, I can tell you that right now. It has that single rib down the middle, whereas the other ones don't. But it looks like I can cut on either side of the track, which is kind of interesting. I kind of like that. Now the other ones, you can't do that. Nice grip. It's almost felt feeling, but it has more of a grip. It's a foam, but it grips well. I like that. Not happening, Chief. No, it don't work. Took the battery out for safety. I like the track. I like how it rides on the track. I do wish that they make a standard track for everyone. Festool, Milwaukee, Makita, PowerTech, even the Wind, they all play well together. You can use any saw on any track. I think KREG is different. I know Ridgid and Ryobi are both different even from each other. It would just be nice if they all played well. As far as the track goes, you can tension these up and down. You're going to have to use some type of tool to loosen that and then tighten it down just to get that little bit of slop out. It's pretty typical you have to adjust those on any track saw. It's not that big of a deal. I just wish I didn't have to have a tool to do that. Most of them you just use friction and that works. A couple other things I noticed missing from this actual kit combo is clamps. You don't get track clamps with this. Whereas Milwaukee in certain combos, Festool in certain combos, you get those clamps, those track clamps, which are useful in some situations. All right, while we go over those features, I'm gonna let this thing charge, and if you can hear, I just plugged it in. Has a fan on there, much like the Flex fast charger. Now, it just helps keep that charger and battery cool. And so we're gonna let that charge, and I'll go over the features of this saw, in case you don't know. So as far as depth adjustment goes, it's very similar to some of the other ones, but a little bit different. So on the Milwaukee as well as the Festool there, the way you, and the Ridgid, the way you adjust the depth is much, much easier. You just push, move, let go. On this one, it is a little twist knob, although it's a good twist knob. It's not cheap or nothing, but you can easily adjust this. Say if I was gonna cut a 1/2 inch deep, then I could just move it to there and tighten it down. Works really well. I just think the other ones are better designed, easier to use, but there's nothing wrong with this one at all. It works just fine. Bevel adjustments, there's 2 twist knobs, one on the front, one on the back, and then you can just tilt it over. I do like the high contrast of this. I mean, it's really easy to see, especially for somebody like me who is red-green color deficient. So on a bevel cut, you will need to keep pressure down on this left side to make that bevel cut, or it will tip off of the track. The majority of my cuts that I do make with the track saw are flat 90-degree cuts, so it wouldn't really be an issue for me, but there are times when you want to make those bevels. So there is variable speed on this. Your variable speed is going to let you go from 2,500 up to 4,500 RPM, depending on how fast you want to cut, or how fast you want your saw to cut, or how fast you want to go. The Ridgid is lacking variable speed, where this has it, as well as the Festool and the Milwaukee. I don't never touch that. I usually just go full and go. Better have it, not need it, not have it. To change the blade, they make it easy. You do not have to remove this outer cover. You'll lower the saw, you'll twist this into position and let go. What that's going to do is lock that blade so that you can get to that arbor. It does have onboard tool storage built into the handle, and then this will let you take off this blade. And what you're getting is a 6.5 inch 42 tooth blade with this saw. You can pick those up, they're pretty common. The depth of cut on track is 2.2 inches and off track 2.3 inches. You're only getting 0.1 of an inch whether you're on or off the track. It's pretty good depth of cut on track. It's just a little barely less than 2 1/4. Most things I cut are plywood and MDF, and then sometimes I'll get into 2-inch thick hardwoods, so it's a pretty good depth of cut. All right, you may have noticed this symbol here is kind of a link with the little light flashes coming off there. I'm not sure what they're trying to do there. This is for a wireless tool synchronization. So like if you've got this paired with a DeWALT dust extractor, you can pair them together so that when you activate this tool, the dust extractor comes on, kind of similar to what Festool does with their Bluetooth stuff. It's a Bluetooth technology is what I'm assuming. It allows them to sync up and turn on at the same time and off at the same time. So just out of curiosity, I was curious if the 5 amp hour regular 20 volt will work. This is just an XR battery. Let's find out. I haven't tried this. I thought for sure that was going to work. You need the 60 volt battery, even though it says it would work with it. One kind of a neat feature of this saw, it has anti-kickback. That is what this is. If you have it hooked into that little position there, it freely slides both ways. But when you disconnect that, it basically slides a tension piece on that track and will only let it go forward and not so much back. You can even see it moving there as it tightens up, and then you can move it back. When you let that go, it keeps it from getting a kickback. I like that. I like having an anti-kickback on there. If you've never had a track saw before, you'll notice that this rubber piece, it moves whenever you try to plunge on it, and that's because it has to be cut to fit your saw on both sides, apparently on this track. But on most saws, it's just one side of the track. You're going to make that cut initially to basically fit that, get a perfect fit to your blade that you're using. Just first impression of the cut on the splinter guard is this is a smooth gliding saw. I like that. I'm not sure how I feel about that plunge. We'll figure that out later. So I've got a 1/2 inch piece of MDF. This will test the dust collection because MDF is very dusty. So I think if you're considering the DeWALT, you're probably also looking at the Milwaukee, maybe even the Festool. It's quite a bit more expensive, or possibly even the Ridgid. I'll touch on some of the similarities and differences pretty quick here. First and foremost is the kind of form factor. This is a unique form factor, probably because of how it's hinging and having to plunge versus how a Milwaukee or even a Festool plunge straight down. The DeWALT really goes forward on both of those. I touched on this earlier, but the depth adjustment on the Milwaukee and on the Festool work very similar. You just press them in and move them to where you want and stop. They both have little fine adjustments so that you can make. The Ridgid's depth adjustment is very similar to the others, except for you don't press in, you just press down and move, and the scale is less fine than the others. The bevel cuts work very similar. All have knobs on the front and back. All of them work the same way. Overall fit and finish of the DeWALT versus the other feels just a good quality tool. It feels like these, I would recommend any of these other three that I've reviewed previously on the other channel, but these are all really good tools for the price that you're paying. They all feel like it, look like it, smell like it. They work like it. As far as warranty goes on all of these, this has a 3-year warranty with 1 year free service. So I'm assuming after 1 year you're up a creek and you have to pay for your own service. I don't know. I'll pop up on the screen because I don't remember offhand what the Milwaukee was. I want to think 5 years on the Milwaukee, 3 or 5 years on the Festool. We'll pop them up, and then Ridgid, of course, has the lifetime service agreement. So if warranty is going to sway your vote, then the Ridgid may be the way for you. One thing I like about the Festool warranty is it has a 10-year part guarantee. So if a part goes out on this in 9 years, they will give you the part, or you can get the part. And if not, they will just give you the new version of the tool. I like that. Pretty much all of these have a really solid warranty from what I can tell. As far as the battery systems go, this depends on what battery platform you're in and or want to dive into. This has the 60 volt like we showed. The Festool has two 18 volt, which makes it 36 volts. I don't know, I've not seen any major power differences versus this with 2 batteries and the Milwaukee M18 with 1 battery. Typically using the 8 or 6 amp hour high output, I believe what battery I have. And then of course the Ridgid has a lot of options for batteries. They recommend 6 amp hour or higher, but I did just get in this beast of a 12 amp hour battery for the Ridgid. Quite heavy, but it does give you more battery life, and it is the max output. A lot of these are going to the high output, max output, however they want to phrase these, and it does seem to help, especially when I tested the regular battery on the Milwaukee versus the high output. I can feel the difference in power. The overall build quality of this tool is top notch. I put it on the level of the Milwaukee. It's a really nice tool. This is some type of metal. This base is some type of metal. I have seen tools like the Ryobi have the plastic base that causes issues with deflection. I don't see that being a problem here. Everything feels nice and sturdy, and I do like that fact. Now there are a few drawbacks to this. I think that some people will not like the plunge action, the way it kind of levers down versus goes straight down. And I think that the basically the battery platform may also take away, because some people don't want to change into battery platforms unless I'm missing something. My 20 volt battery will not fit this tool, but this may fit my 20 volt. It does. Why won't the 20 volt fit that? It's annoying. Overall, I like the anti-kickback. I like the fit and finish. I don't necessarily like the proprietary track, but that's not really an issue if this is the only track saw you have. And then there are accessories available for this Tracksaw combo out there just because it's been on the market for quite a while, such as dust covers that go over this little port to keep the dust, to help with dust management. And then there are also guide rail squares and things you can pick up from TSO. I'll link to those things in the description if you're interested in this saw, as well as some accessories for it. Overall, on first impressions, I'm kind of impressed with this tool. I kind of had some preconceived notions on what I thought this tool was going to be, and I'm not disappointed in it yet. I still have some testing left to do. I like to use these tools for a while before I give my full review opinion, and that's where I need your help. Outlaw Nation, come through and let me know in the comments exactly what you want to see in that full review so that we can test it out and make sure it's the tool for you. Otherwise, if you think this is a tool for you now, I'll put a link in the description below to this one and the ones you've seen today. So far, I like this tool. I think it would be a good addition to most shops. Now, how it's going to perform in thicker hardwoods, what's the battery life like, all that coming in a later review. If you like this video, you got to check out my next one. I think you'll enjoy being a part of the Outlaw.